Welcome to Life Stories. What if the people you loved most, the ones who raised you, turned their backs on you when you needed them the most? Imagine spending your whole life trying to meet their expectations, only to realize that nothing you do will ever be enough. What if, on your wedding day, the day you've dreamed of for years, you found yourself standing alone, with empty chairs where your family should have been? This isn't just a story about love or betrayal. It's about finding the courage to choose yourself when the people who should love you most refuse to. Stay with us as we dive deep into a journey of pain, self-discovery, and ultimate freedom. Let's begin. Amelia stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the simple lace dress she had chosen for her wedding day. It wasn't extravagant or showy, just a soft white that felt like the quietest statement of love. No diamonds, no grand gowns. She wanted something that felt real, something true to who she was, who she had become. The apartment was still. The only sounds were the hum of the ceiling fan and the distant sound of the city waking up. Amelia had planned every detail of the day, from the wildflowers lining the aisle to the modest barbecue catering. Every detail, except one. She had imagined for so long that her family would be there, her parents, her sister, cheering her on, witnessing her joy. She had envisioned the smiles, the laughter, the sense of pride as she walked down the aisle to the man she loved. But instead, the seat that should have held her mother, her father, her sister, remained empty. The silence of the apartment felt like a weight she couldn't lift. It pressed against her chest, cold and suffocating. Her phone sat on the counter, still. No messages, no calls, no words of encouragement, not from her family. It had been like this for months now, her calls going unanswered, her messages read but ignored. At first, she had tried to reach out. She had been the dutiful daughter, the loving sister, always doing more, giving more. But in return, all she received was silence. And when the silence was too loud to ignore, they replaced it with judgment. Her mother, Sarah, had once been her biggest supporter. At least, that's what Amelia had believed. But now, the woman who had helped shape her into who she was nowhere to be found. No congratulations, no calls to discuss the wedding plans. Just sharp, quiet criticisms about how Amelia wasn't doing enough to make it worth their while. Her father, Robert, had barely said a word. He didn't need to. His silence was louder than any argument, any accusation. They had made it clear that if Amelia wasn't willing to bow to their demands, she would face the consequences. The tension between them had been building for months. It had started with small comments, the kind that seemed insignificant at first. Her mother had complained about the wedding venue being too far, too expensive. Robert had grumbled about the cost of suits and gas. But when Amelia had refused to cater to their demands, when she had insisted on keeping the wedding simple and personal, it had all unraveled. Her mother had stopped calling. Her father had stopped checking in. And when Amelia had stood firm, it became clear that she was no longer the daughter they loved unconditionally. She was a tool, an asset to be used for their benefit. Still, Amelia held out hope. She couldn't help it. Deep down, she clung to the possibility that maybe, just maybe, they would show up. Maybe they would surprise her. But as the days passed and her wedding drew nearer, the hope grew smaller, like a candle flickering in a windstorm, struggling to stay lit. And then it came. The envelope. She had stood at the kitchen counter, staring at the envelope that had arrived with no fanfare, no ceremony. Her hands had shaken as she ripped it open. The words inside were sharp and cold, written in her mother's unmistakable handwriting. Deal with it. You chose this life. That was all. No apology, no explanation, just a final dismissal. The last shred of hope Amelia had clung to was gone. She had shown it to Jack, her fiancé, who had read the note twice before his jaw tightened in anger. You don't deserve this, he had said softly, but Amelia didn't need his words. The truth hit harder than any anger could. This wasn't new. It wasn't just about the wedding. It was years of emotional neglect, years of being treated like nothing more than a means to an end. And now, on the day that should have been the happiest of her life, they were gone. Jack had been there for her, always. From the moment they met, he had been her anchor, her constant. He had seen the cracks in her family long before she had. He had seen the way they used her, how they made her feel small, and how she had kept running back to them, hoping they would love her the way she had always hoped for. But Jack had seen through the facade long ago. He had told her, time and time again, that she didn't owe them anything. He had made her believe it, but she hadn't been able to accept it until now. The silence that followed her discovery felt heavy, oppressive. She sat down at the kitchen table, the note in her hand like a final betrayal. Jack had sat beside her, not saying a word, just holding her hand. And for the first time, Amelia felt something she hadn't felt in years: relief. It wasn't the relief of being free from the pain, not yet, but it was the relief of knowing that she didn't have to beg for their approval anymore. She didn't have to fight for a place in their hearts. She had a new family now, one that had chosen her, not out of obligation, but out of love. When she stood at the altar that afternoon, there was no one there who should have been: her parents, her sister, none of them. But when she looked at Jack, his eyes filled with love and warmth, something shifted in her heart. She wasn't walking down the aisle for them. She was walking for herself, for the life she had chosen, for the love she had found, not just in Jack, but in herself. But then, as they exchanged vows and danced their first dance, the rumors began. A guest, someone she didn't even know, whispered to another, "Did you hear? I heard she had to rush the wedding. Maybe she's already pregnant." The words hit Amelia like a physical blow, a sharp sting that threatened to break her composure. She looked at Jack, who was already aware of the rumor. His arm tightened around her waist as if to protect her, but it wasn't enough. This wasn't just a cruel rumor. It was part of the campaign against her, part of the smear her sister Emily had started months ago. Jack leaned down, his voice low and steady. "You don't have to deal with this today." But Amelia knew better. She had dealt with enough. And this was no different. She wasn't going to let them control her, not anymore. What would you do if you had to choose between your family and your own happiness? Have you ever been forced to let go of someone who was supposed to love you? The day was almost over. But Amelia knew this wasn't the end. She wasn't going to fight them with anger. No, she was going to fight them with truth. And for the first time, she felt the power that had been stripped from her for so long. She wasn't just the daughter anymore. She was a woman, strong, independent, and unbreakable. Tomorrow, she would take the first step in reclaiming everything they had tried to take from her. She wouldn't let them win. Amelia sat in the quiet aftermath of the reception, her legs tucked under her as she curled up on the couch in their small apartment. The events of the day, a day she had once dreamt of for years, felt almost surreal now. The empty chairs at her wedding, the mocking rumors, the weight of it all pressing down on her chest. It wasn't the celebration she had hoped for, and it wasn't just the absence of her family that hurt. It was the realization that, for years, she had been trying to make them see her worth in a way that was never meant to be. Her phone buzzed again, and this time, she didn't hesitate. She knew what she would find. A message from Rachel, one of the few friends who had supported her throughout this journey. She opened the text, her eyes scanning the words. "Amelia, I need to show you something. It's about Celeste." Amelia felt the air shift around her, as if the ground beneath her feet was subtly tilting. She opened the link Rachel had sent, her breath catching as the page loaded. It was a screenshot of a group text, one that didn't make sense at first. There, in black and white, was Celeste's name, alongside a few others. But what shocked Amelia wasn't just the text, it was the words attached to it. They were discussing Amelia's wedding, but not in the way anyone would expect. "She's so pathetic," Celeste's words leaped off the screen. "I can't believe she thought we'd all come for this little show. She deserves everything that's coming for her. If you don't play the game, you lose." Amelia felt a sickening twist in her stomach. This wasn't just gossip or petty resentment. This was a deliberate attack. Celeste wasn't just angry. She was orchestrating it. She had been planting the seeds of betrayal, not just with her family, but with everyone who might still care about Amelia. She had turned her own sister into an enemy. Amelia's hands trembled as she set the phone down on the coffee table, the reality settling over her like a storm. The truth that had been haunting her for months was now undeniable. She had been nothing more than a pawn in their game, a game she had never been meant to win. The love, the loyalty, it had all been conditional. And now, in the aftermath of everything, the last shred of hope she had, her sister, the one person she had hoped would come through, had crushed it all. "Jack," Amelia whispered, her voice breaking the heavy silence. He looked up from the kitchen, his face unreadable. She met his gaze, her eyes filling with the kind of quiet devastation only betrayal can cause. "It's worse than I thought. It wasn't just them not coming to the wedding. They've been plotting against me, spreading lies, trying to make me out to be the villain." Jack walked over and knelt beside her, his steady hand finding hers. "You already know this, Amelia. They've shown you who they are. The question is, what are you going to do now?" She closed her eyes, squeezing his hand. "I don't know. I just, I feel like I've spent my whole life trying to make them love me, trying to be the daughter they wanted. But it was never enough, was it? I was always just a tool, something they could use. And now they've decided I'm not worth even pretending to care about." Jack's gaze softened, but his voice was firm. "You're not their project. You're not a tool, and you're not the version of yourself they built. You're Amelia, the one who stood here today despite everything they did, the one who chose herself. They've lost you, and they don't get to take your peace away." But even as he said it, Amelia could feel the weight of the question hanging in the air. Was it really over? Was it really as simple as choosing to walk away, as Jack had suggested? She knew better than anyone that things weren't that simple. Her heart still ached with the kind of longing that didn't disappear overnight. The need to be loved, to be accepted by the people who had raised her. It wasn't something you could just turn off. Her phone buzzed again, this time a notification from social media. She hesitated before unlocking it. There it was, another post from her family. It was a picture of Celeste, her smiling face plastered across the screen, a caption below it that made Amelia's blood run cold. "Some people don't appreciate what they have until it's gone. I'll always be here for the ones who show respect. Family first." It was a message to the world, a final blow to her already fragile sense of belonging. Celeste wasn't just mocking Amelia. She was publicly excusing her own behavior and blaming Amelia for everything. This was a calculated move, a performance designed to paint herself as the victim. And to top it all off, the comments were rolling in. Family members, friends, people who had never known the real Amelia, all of them showering praise on Celeste for standing up for family values. Amelia slammed the phone down, the frustration and betrayal building inside her until it felt like she couldn't breathe. She turned to Jack, the tears she had been holding back finally falling freely. "I'm so tired of this. Why do they get to control everything? Why do they get to make me feel like I'm nothing unless I meet their expectations?" Jack reached for her, pulling her into a tight hug. "Because they don't know what it means to love Amelia, and they never will." But even as he comforted her, Amelia felt the internal tug-of-war within her. She could feel the heat of the injustice, of everything they had done to her, but at the same time, she knew that fighting back wasn't about them anymore. It wasn't about proving them wrong or making them see the truth. It was about her, about reclaiming her life, about choosing herself over and over again, even when it felt impossible. She wiped her tears away and met Jack's gaze. "You're right. I've spent too long letting them define me, but I won't anymore." The tension in the air shifted, and for the first time in weeks, Amelia felt the stirrings of something stronger than anger. Something she had lost touch with in the years of trying to fit into the mold they had built for her. It was clarity, and she was ready to use it. How do you find the strength to walk away when the people you love most are the ones who hurt you? Can you ever really move on, or does the past always follow you? Amelia stood up, the decision settling in her chest. She wasn't going to let them keep pulling the strings. She wasn't going to let them write her story anymore. It was time to write her own. But as she looked out the window, she knew this wasn't the end. Not yet. There was still more to come, and it would be a battle she was ready for. A battle where the only thing that mattered was her truth, and she would make sure everyone knew it. The silence in the room was broken by the soft ping of her phone. It was another message from Celeste. Amelia took a deep breath and opened it. What she read made her pulse race, but not in the way she expected. It was a challenge, a direct confrontation that could change everything. And just like that, the stakes had been raised. Amelia wasn't just fighting for herself anymore. She was fighting for the life she deserved. Stay tuned for the next chapter, where Amelia faces the ultimate confrontation. Amelia sat at the kitchen table, her phone trembling in her hands as she read Celeste's message again. The words were sharp, cutting through her like a knife. There it was, an ultimatum. Celeste's challenge to her, daring her to prove herself. You don't know what you've lost until it's gone. You've turned your back on family. Now you'll have to live with the consequences. The weight of those words hung in the air, and Amelia's heart raced as she read them. It was so clear now, the game her sister had been playing. It wasn't just about love or support, it was about control. And now, Celeste was trying to play the victim, to make Amelia look like the villain in their twisted family narrative. Amelia's fingers gripped the phone tighter, the message blurring before her eyes. But the anger that threatened to boil over was not the only thing inside her. There was something else, something deeper, something more painful. It was the realization that no matter how many lies her sister spread, no matter how much cruelty her family had inflicted on her, Amelia had spent so much of her life hoping they would change, hoping they would see her for who she really was, and not the version they had created in their minds. The past weeks had been a whirlwind of emotions. The betrayal, the silent rejection, the sudden cutting off from the people she had once loved without question. But now, she felt a calm settling over her, the kind of calm that comes only after you've faced the truth about who you are and who you are not. She wasn't their puppet anymore. She wasn't going to beg for their love. She wasn't going to sit at the table where they chose to ignore her. Jack entered the room, his expression soft but determined. He didn't need to say anything. He could see it in her face. The storm had passed. The tears that had fallen in a steady stream for days had stopped. Amelia had finally found the quiet strength she had been searching for. Not because she had won, but because she had let go. "They're not coming back, are they?" Jack's voice was low, steady. "No," Amelia whispered, her voice firm but laced with an undeniable sadness. "And I can't make them. I thought, maybe, just maybe, they would see me, but now I see myself, and that's enough." Jack stepped closer, kneeling beside her. He cupped her face in his hands, his gaze unwavering. "You've always been enough, Amelia. You just needed to believe it." She nodded slowly, her throat tight as she let the tears finally fall again. Not from pain, but from something else. Something that felt like release. This wasn't the life she had planned, but it was the life she had chosen, and there was power in that. The decision was made, and with it came a quiet sense of finality. It wasn't a door slamming shut, but a door quietly closing, leaving her free. Free from the expectations, free from the manipulations, free from the toxic love that had bound her for so long. But the aftermath of Celeste's text weighed heavily on her mind. It wasn't just about her sister trying to manipulate her. It was about the broader betrayal, the systematic erasure of her worth. Amelia could feel the injustice of it, how deep it ran. The pain wasn't just from her family's abandonment. It was from the years of believing that she had to earn their love, that her love was conditional. Now the pieces were falling into place, and she wasn't just angry anymore. She was done. The next morning, Amelia woke up early, the soft morning light spilling over the room. The apartment was calm, peaceful, a stark contrast to the storm that had raged inside her for so long. She felt different now, stronger. Like she had shed a layer of skin and was emerging, ready to face what came next. As the sun rose higher in the sky, Amelia sat at the kitchen table, her phone in front of her. She took a deep breath, her fingers brushing over the screen as she opened up a new post. This time, there were no more games, no more hiding. She was going to tell the truth, her truth. She typed carefully, her words measured but full of the weight of everything she had been carrying for so long. This is what family looked like for me. No apologies, no regrets, just truth laid bare for anyone willing to see. She attached the screenshots, the messages, the photos, everything. She wasn't going to let their lies define her anymore. She hit post, feeling the finality of it settle inside her. Amelia leaned back in her chair, the quiet of the room enveloping her. It wasn't the victory she had imagined, the grand triumph of exposing their cruelty. It was something simpler, something more meaningful. This was her taking back control, not by tearing them down, but by refusing to let them hurt her anymore. The notification pinged almost immediately. The post had gone live, and the world was reacting. Amelia watched the likes begin to accumulate, the comments flooding in. Strangers were offering support. Friends who had remained silent for so long were reaching out. The truth was out, and for the first time in her life, Amelia felt the rush of something far more powerful than anger or regret. She felt relief. She felt free. But as the notifications continued to roll in, Amelia's phone buzzed again, this time a message from Rachel. Amelia opened it, and her eyes widened as she read the text. "You've been contacted by the press. They want your story. They want to share it with the world." Amelia froze, her heart pounding. This wasn't just about family anymore. This wasn't just about her. It was about something bigger, something more public than she had ever imagined. A deep breath escaped her lips as she stared at the screen. Her life was about to change in ways she couldn't predict. But in that moment, she didn't feel scared. She didn't feel overwhelmed. She felt ready. This was her story, and no one was going to take it from her. Not anymore. What would you do if you found the strength to finally tell your story, no matter who it might hurt? How would you face the world after everything you've been through? Amelia had made her decision. She wasn't going to fight with anger. She wasn't going to let her family's cruelty define her future. She was going to live her truth, and in doing so, she would create a future far more beautiful than anything they could have ever given her. And as the first reporters began to reach out, Amelia knew that this was just the beginning. The truth had been set free, and she had finally chosen herself. If this story resonated with you, leave a comment below and share your thoughts. Did Amelia's journey inspire you to reclaim your own truth? Let us know where you're watching from, and don't forget to hit 100 if you loved this story. Share this video with your friends, and thank you for watching Life Stories.